Boy, I hate to say it, but we're under our final presentation of the not only the day, but of the week. And this one comes from Cal Arts. It's called Sea Studio, Creating Kinship with Our Oceans. Cal Arts has been given an old warehouse at the Port of Los Angeles to reimagine as a space for an immersive experience about ocean health and sustainability. And it's going to be for both artists and the public. Their Pando Days submission is focused on designing what that experience should be. So, it doesn't get cooler than that. Excited to have Professor Shannon Scrofano here as the team lead. So Shannon, can you give us a little taste of what the Sea Studio experience might be like?
Sure. Hi everyone. It's so wonderful to hear from all of the students and the projects are so amazing. I do have one colleague here, Ridi Matoria is here today, which is great, but you're gonna unfortunately mostly have to listen to me. I just want to say thanks for the opportunity to share the work that Cal Arts students have been doing this semester to consider how to bring the conditions in the oceans, which is our collective California backyard, into better focus. So let me go ahead and share our little site that we're working with. All right. Yep. So to begin with, this is just a feed from the Channel Islands Marine Protected Area. But to begin with a bit of important context, 40% of the global population, which lives within 100 kilometers of a coast. And this means both pressure on those habitats and land use in those areas, but also opportunity to create greater intimacy with and investment in the health of the oceans and our living shorelines. Scientists estimate that 50 to 80% of the oxygen production on Earth comes from the oceans. From a human standpoint, which is certainly not the only one that our Cal Arts students were interested in understanding, oceans drive the climate of the planet and influence everything from our food supply to our air quality. The oceans have absorbed 90% of the warming that has occurred in recent decades due to the human accelerated increase in greenhouse gases. And the top few meters of the ocean store as much heat as Earth's entire atmosphere. So that's why our project, Sea Studio, is bringing together emerging artists and designers to the Port of Los Angeles to embed ocean priorities into their practices and to demonstrate to scientists, advocates, and the public the powers of creative perspectives on these issues. So few of us even understand actually what's happening in the oceans because it takes special knowledge and ways of seeing to fully comprehend the changes, the disappearance of our kelp forests in non-protected areas, the urchin barrens, the threats to shellfish from rising temperatures, the impacts on migration, and the seeing that does occur gets trapped in white papers, science journals, graphs, and charts that are largely illegible outside of inner circles of researchers. And so this semester in class, we learned from scientists like Dr. Janet Kubler of CSUN, folks at the California Seaweed Festival, folks incubating blue tech, and visionaries like Five Gyre's Marcus Meeson, that they are all keen to find new ways to translate the information and create real investment in the oceans, recognition that ocean health is biodiversity health, is terra health, is planetary health, and is human health. And we learned from climate justice and traditional ecological knowledge perspectives that we have the capacity to be in balance, to be in more equitable relationship. Less than 5% of countries actually mandate educational curriculum around the oceans, resulting in a serious ocean literacy deficit. The word ocean is in the Green New Deal only one time, and the oceans are just very often an afterthought. So Sea Studio takes an interdisciplinary approach to addressing the critical state of the oceans and creating kinship with this vast blue world, holding sustained space for the arts to create engaging translations of the science and to consistently support colleagues and communities working on the front lines of climate justice and solutions with the oceans front of mind. It also invites the curious public in to share the questions in non-threatening generative ways that are committed to accessibility for all, no matter the level of scientific knowledge. We need to equip people to change the conversation around the importance of ocean health in their families, circles, and communities. And for example, the Blue New Deal, pretty new, is just beginning to get its sea legs, and we can be a part of how that lands with the public in creating the receptor sites needed to make different decisions. So, all All right, goals 5 and 6 in our county sustainability plan, a look at how to make thriving ecosystems, habitats, and biodiversity, as well as accessible parks, beaches, recreational waters, public lands, and public spaces that create opportunities, particularly for ecological discovery and cultural activities. And this is where we focused our energy. We also looked at some UN SDGs as well. The Center for New Performance at CalArts has begun a multi-year partnership with AltaSea at the Port of Los Angeles. And AltaSea, if you all don't know, is dedicated to accelerating scientific collaboration, advancing an emerging blue economy through business innovation and job creation, and inspiring the next generation, all for a more sustainable, just, and equitable world. Their campus, which is housed at a historic pier at the port and already is a bustling and inspiring place to visit, is undergoing an architectural transformation that will eventually include maker facilities as well as a discovery center. And we aim to make Sea Studio a continuing presence there during this transition time and hopefully beyond. Okay. So this semester in our class, MFA and BFA students in the Creating Equilibrium Studio have come from disciplines of instrumental arts, costume design, choreography, graphic design, experimental animation, jazz percussion, experience design, the visual arts, and music technology. And they were encouraged to find their own ways into the possibilities of communicating, engaging, immersing, and investing their fellow humans in the challenges the ocean faces. We were really fortunate to have voices from the US, Japan, Mexico, France, India, China, and even a student from Wyoming, which is pretty much the polar opposite of California in terms of politics and ocean access. And this group came up with experiential propositions that stretch from pop-up spaces made of bio-based materials to sound walks, to mediated environments addressing pollution, to treehouse investigations of local water cycles, and even what it has to do with the LA River. We struggled in class with questions of behavior change, levels of responsibility, corporate, governmental, individual, of clear communication versus aesthetic ambiguity, of emotional power and narratives, of trauma and climate anxiety, who makes the emissions, and inequitably which populations bear the brunt of those privileges, both near and far. We had to ask, can the arts really impact any of this and not seek comfort? These are not easy questions with Googleable answers, but as an educator, I'm really inspired that these passionately curious and deeply empathic artists and designers are willing to grapple with them. So let's go to a couple of projects. I'm going to mention a few projects, but feel free to find our site and explore the rest. Our semester is not over, so students are still adding content, details, and drawings, but the Pando page will always have the most updated URL for the content. So I'm going to start with Rudy's work since she's here. Rudy Mathuria's work, A New World, explores the question, what would a built environment look like made of entirely bio-based materials, and how would humans, other living organisms react and engage with this world? All right, I'm sorry, this is going to be a little too fast, but Jeremy Pappas's project, trash replacement. Let me see if I can get to it without the Zoom windows in the way. Here we go. Oh, sorry. Oops. I'm sorry, I'm in edit mode. Give me a second. That was not supposed to be like that. Okay. Let's see. His project. All right. Well, I'll find the image in a minute, but it works with the beach cleanup for groups to document the land-based and organic or bio waste washing up on our shores, and uses replacement animation techniques to then be deployed in large-scale architectural projection. With the Treehouse project, let me see if I can get that link to work. There you go. The Treehouse project, Kento Shirotsuka and Lucas Lanique asked the question, how can we educate young people about nature so they can learn to protect and harness it? And they developed a model of treehouse-based interactive environments based on keystone species to create healthy physical activity and demonstrate how young people can work to support balanced ecosystems, following the lead of a species that plays a major part in their own ecosystem. All right. Pablo de Larrañaga Aramoni created the Ocean Oneness Project. He's prototyping this as an encounter that manifests itself as a kinetic installation with sensory elements, immersing audiences in the different forms of life and land and sea that have been impacted by human activity. Rona Wen developed Uzo, which is a biomaterials-based pop-up shore gallery that contrasts repurposed coastal pollution and debris to explore alternative relationships to disposability. All right. And let me go back. Sorry, I'm going so fast. Okay. Nick Ginsburg explores life upstream, asking what soundscapes as expressions of material and cultural processes thread together physical and imagined space in Los Angeles, and uses 4-channel audio and mixed digital media to place the public in a diverse range of sound worlds composing Los Angeles. Michelle Fan asks, how can the creative process of art making cultivate understanding of and care for the subject matter? And it develops a series of actions and ways for communities to document and engage with their own non-human neighbors and plant and animal elders. Dylan Todd's project, Art Doesn't Matter, We're All Gonna Die, is a performance-based look at Generation Z fury, trauma, apathy, and attention to the climate crisis. Let's see, I just got a couple more I'm going to fly through here. Okay, Grace Slavicek developed a project called The Plastics Problem, which is an interactive installation exploring where our recycling narratives come from and where our waste actually ends up, despite whatever the bin label is or our individual intentions about where it's headed. And I also just want to mention Nisha Tyagi, who's examining corporate responsibility and lack of accountability and the environmental impact in the oceans, and the work of Livia Howard-Yashar, who really kept us all in active conversation about impact and action through her ongoing research on behavioral change. So next steps for our project, let me see if I can get there. Okay, there we go. Oh, that's our phone booth. We're making a project in the phone booth too. Next steps for us in this journey are continuing the pre-visualization work of the individual installations, educational content and experiences, as well as top-line project planning, making draft budgets, and seeking some funding to create prototypes for some of the projects with students who want to continue taking the work forward. We would like to test these projects both at AltaSea in some of their events, and to work with their network of local relationships in San Pedro to install some temporary or pop-up versions at public locations beyond the AltaSea Pier. And through other relationships that we have with folks working in this space, we also hope to cultivate some dialogues with the Natural History Museum, California Science Center, and the Cabrillo Marine Aquarium. And I don't know, I think the phone booth should live outside the fish market, so we'll see. We have the opportunity to test installations at the Port of Los Angeles as a part of these public events, including the annual Blue Hour, which will be next October. And we're also working with the team of Eco Consciousness 2023, which is a large LA-wide event in next September, to present work both on CalArts campus and possibly other sites throughout LA. Here is our really long-winded logic model. And we have learned that, there are many levers of change that, oh wait, hold on, where's my, there it is. There's many levers of change that can be pulled to shift public action. And that it is through hearing the same thing repeated from trusted sources that we shift opinion one by one. So C Studio really hopes to become kind of resource for artists, students, scientists, advocates, and the public, and to be a voice in that chorus for how we can evolve our kinship with the oceans. So I want to thank the students for all of their work, in particular to Ella Rosenblatt, our fearless TA, to Pando folks, especially I want to say thanks to Jenny Crusoe at AltaSea, and everyone on our thank you list that you can find on the info page. And really a lot of these projects that we're hearing, I just am so excited about. I would say reach out to CalArts artists in any way if that would be, if we can work together, find a way to work together going forward. Thank you. That's what we've got.
Amazing. Thanks, Shannon. Love seeing just the diversity of projects, and actually the way that they exist together on this webpage is really wonderful. Something I don't want to take up time from the panelists, something that I'd think about or almost have as a question of my own is, to what extent do you hope the projects coordinate with each other or connect versus, exist as their own experience? And there's nothing wrong with either option, obviously. I'm just kind of curious, knowing that they would be in that shared space, to what extent are they feeding off of each other? Yeah.
I think what we learned was there were just some, part of the notion of a studio, a studio holds a space for an artist. And the Keller Center for New Performance, which is part of how we originally developed this relationship, is really about like supporting the artist and following the artist's lead. And we want to be able to feed the artist with all the relevant things that make the work more impactful and get where it wants to go. But we started with a tighter kind of rein at the beginning of the semester, but some folks just wanted to go and like be with the beavers. And some folks like wanted to figure out what space along the, how to re-understand industrial sites along the space of the LA River. And we just kind of let that happen. So I think in terms of actual, what might find its way as a prototype or permanent at the port, we don't know what that end game is, but are really trying to use the class. It's the only classic CalArts that we have that like engages in climate in a creative way, studio way right now. So
Yeah.
so this is their chance to kind of do something that they're passionate about. And then I think, once the projects are out, you start to see, what are the dialogues between, how can we strengthen those dialogues, especially if there were a series in one of these warehouses at the port, or if the work could go into the Discovery Center that eventually Alta-Sea is developing.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you, Shannon. All right, let's see, maybe Chris, let's start with you. Do you have a question for Shannon?
No, actually, no. I mean, I'm just fascinated and amazing work that Shannon and your students have done here. Just a couple of comments. First one is we're trying to work in visuals like this in many projects that we're doing here in LA Metro. And would love to see your students' work get expanded in other venues around the city, not just the oceans. Amazing work. And then the other thing I just want to say is that the National Climate Assessment, if you just want to Google that, there's a National Climate Assessment call for art. And what we're trying to do is exactly what your goal is in there, in terms of the intersectionality of art and climate, and allowing for creatives to express, their feelings, emotions, ideas, in a completely different way than when the National Climate Assessment was first conceived. And I think there's a lot of opportunities there for you and your students to thrive. So just want to mention that.
Thank you so much. And yeah, let's put the oceans on the metro through art. That'd be cool.
And I did mention Gary Jones earlier. I do set on the Beach Commission, and we already have Can the Art, I think it's, or Art the Can, for elementary school students, and I think this is just carrying your project here is just carrying the effort to the next level. So great work.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. LaRonda, do you have a question for Shannon? And you're already off mute, so you're set.
Great. No, I have no question for Shannon. I support the idea that you keep making it more available, your work that the different artists are doing, that you make it more accessible, I guess is the word I'm looking for the public, because I think even people that don't think about art and engineering or engineering and performance, it all comes together in what you've described. And I think for all these kinds of projects that I've heard today, more understanding of what's happening in these spaces and reaching out to a larger overall population, how do you do that? You know, I would think you just start out by doing presentations like this one, but doing it to a variety of different organizations, business, education, environmental, just there's so many avenues. I'll give you a list if you want, but to be able to do that, I think it's the right thing, and to be able then to put things in language that the layperson can understand. I've wondered a long time, why don't we bring the arts and the science together more, and the economics together more? And that's what this whole thing has been for me, a great privilege, everyone that I've listened to. But I think you are in a particular position, given the diversity you described, to be a spearhead and begin this bringing together of the thoughts, because a lot of people don't imagine that art and science go together. I encounter that often. So no, just keep doing what you're doing. I would say that not to you alone, but to all the projects I've heard. They've been wonderful to me. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm very grateful to Eugene for reaching out and asking me to participate with him and this wonderful team of people. So thank you. I wish you the best. I'll be talking you up. Like find you if I see that I think it applies to you. You'll hear from me maybe through Eugene.
That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful. The mycorrhizal networks of Pando are mighty, and it's really nice that the nutrients can flow.
Yes. So thank you. Thank you all.
Awesome. Mary Beth, let's give you the final word on this one.
Okay, well, there's two things I want to say. One is the convergence of art and the science and other perspectives necessary to heal the planet. Just so critical. We have on our property here in Encino with the Sisters of Social Service given space to a project called the Biophilia Treehouse, and it's a large structure on our property now that's soon to be completed, and it's a feeding station for migratory birds and a place where it's a very intentional prototype that the intention of the county committee is to expand it all over Los Angeles. And it is a public art structure which serves the purpose of feeding migrating birds and restoring a lot of the native plant life and other things that are necessary here. So it's such a natural connection. People are attracted by art, and art has a huge message. The message that I would ask about is, how do we change from a competition between the Green New Deal and the Blue New Deal, so that we understand the interconnections? I was shocked by that reference that only 2% of the Green New Deal has anything to do with oceans, and that needs to be integrated, because it's all part of the same picture. And we don't want to have the Green New Dealers over here and the Blue New Dealers here. And art, I think, could speak that message of bringing it all together. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mary Beth. It sounds like we need the Teal New Deal.
I was just thinking that, but I couldn't say it because it rhymed. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm happy to look like a fool. Oh gosh, everybody.